there's no one to come out and say, this is my vision of what Bitcoin should be, and we should go with that. And if Satoshi Nakamoto ever came back, I'm sure he can sway a lot of people into his vision of Bitcoin if he actually says something. But because he's anonymous and no one knows who he is, and he kind of disappeared, there's no centralized leadership.
Breaking news. Conflict minerals are coming under heavy fire. You see, 60% of the world's cobalt comes from Congo, a region making billions leveraging the use of child labor for the production of crucial minerals that enable our electronics. Already existing supply shortages could get extreme as new executive orders have been drafted to cut off the use of minerals such as cobalt from this region. The clean energy trend is unstoppable, and cobalt is a crucial component. Savvy investors ready to fully experience this undeniable revolution need to visit crushthestreet.com/cobalt17. Hello everyone, and welcome into crushthestreet.com. I'm Kenneth Amaduri, and we're going to have a digital currency discussion today. And who I brought on the line is really a rock star. He doesn't need much of an introduction. His name is Charlie Lee, the founder of Litecoin. And really, this was my first experience to digital currencies. A few years ago, when I first got in, I actually purchased Litecoins before I purchased Bitcoins. So I'm really excited to speak with Charlie today. It's going to be a real treat for everyone. He's also the director of engineering at Coinbase. Charlie Lee, thanks for joining me.
Yeah, thanks, Kenneth. Thanks for having me.
Charlie, Litecoin has been known to be silver to Bitcoin's gold, and I found out that you actually coined that phrase. So let's talk a little bit about that. You know, where does Litecoin fit into the cryptocurrency picture in 2017?
Sure. So the reason I created Litecoin in the first place and why I called it silver to Bitcoin's gold is I've always realized that Bitcoin would have a tough time scaling to meet the demands of all the transactional needs, because while trying to be the most secure, most decentralized currency, it's hard to beat that and also have a lot of transaction throughput. So I would imagine Litecoin helping out with the transactional needs of a digital decentralized cryptocurrency.
Oh man.
So in 2017, we're seeing that there's a lot of other coins coming up to help with that also, like Ethereum, Monero, and others. And I think Litecoin fits in well because Litecoin is still one that is more closely modeled after Bitcoin. So it has the same features as Bitcoin. And moving forward, I think it can do a lot to help cryptocurrency grow in general.
Sure, that's really exciting, and we're going to get to some of those advancements here in the call, talk about some of the changes that are happening in Bitcoin. So as far as Litecoin goes, are there any big events or news stories or anything that you forecast that could put Litecoin on the map to a large degree here going forward for people who want to buy it now in 2017?
Yeah, so recently we've been working on adding SegWit to Litecoin. So as most people already know, the core devs of Bitcoin have been working on SegWit for quite a while, for like a couple years. And this is the latest feature that Bitcoin and Litecoin that I want to add to Litecoin, which would help with certain features, help with adding new features in the future. So it fixes something called transactional malleability, which is something that has hurt new technology being adopted to Bitcoin because of this. So that's a big thing that currently miners and pools are signaling for, and hopefully we'll get that this year, get it adopted in Litecoin.
Yeah, that's really cool. Charlie, when it comes to Bitcoin, the founder is unknown, And this is obviously a much different scenario with Litecoin, considering the fact that I'm talking with you right now. Is this a problem for Bitcoin that there is no founder? People don't really know who started it, or is that a good thing?
It's both good and bad. It's bad in the sense that when it comes to like these decision-making situations where half the people want to increase the block size to scale, half the people want to scale off-chain, there's no one to come out and say, this is my vision of what Bitcoin should be, and we should go with that. If Satoshi Nakamoto ever came back, I'm sure he can sway a lot of people into his vision of Bitcoin if he actually says something. But because he's anonymous and no one knows who he is, and he kind of disappeared, there's no centralized leadership. So it's harder to move things forward. But that's also good because you want Bitcoin to be a decentralized currency, right? You don't want it to be controlled by a single person or a single party where it can easily be corrupted into something that's no longer good anymore. Sure,
and those are the characteristics of the money that people are seeking out digital currencies for, right? They're tired of the fiat dollar, and they're very optimistic of a currency that is protected from those potential problems, such as money printing or and things like that. Yeah. So, Charlie, let's talk about the probability of Bitcoin's hard fork. Do you think this is likely, and do you support the hard fork for Bitcoin?
I don't think it's likely. I mean, it's certainly a much higher probability now than like a year ago. But I think a contentious hard fork like it is right now there's no upside to that. So best case, it will split the coin into two coins. Half the people will be on one coin, the other half will rather use the other coin. And then the value of both coins would determine which one is the eventual, like the real Bitcoin. But that's like the best case where there's a clean split and everything is fine. Worst case is it totally like destroys the coin, the value, replay attacks on both sides, people losing a lot of money, and just businesses have to shut down for days because unsure of which one is Bitcoin and what's going on. So it's really a mess, and I hope we never come to that.
Yeah, and a lot of people who are skeptical will use this as a reason to not trust it, because they'll see, hey, this is the risk of getting involved in something that is new and doesn't have a lot of history.
It's also the risk of, this is the first time we're dealing with like a decentralized governance of a currency, right? So we've never seen this before, and we don't know what's the best way to make it work, because there is no controlling body that can say this is the way we're going to do it, and that's it.
So what's the worst case scenario for Bitcoin if a solution doesn't come to the table? Do transaction costs just go to the roof? $30, $40, $50, $100 to transact with Bitcoin? Is that where this goes?
Well, the worst case for this is status quo, right? Well, I mean, if we're not doing a hard fork, which could be really bad, but if for this kind of system, if there's no consensus, then status quo wins. So that means block size stays at 1 megabyte, and we keep going as is. And because Bitcoin is becoming more and more popular, and there's limited space, it's just a supply and demand problem. So there's limited supply, a lot of demand, so the price will go up. So in this case, it's transaction fees. So when transaction fees go up, it just means whoever wants to use Bitcoin has to pay more for their transaction. But people are willing to pay this because Bitcoin provides a decentralized, super secure form of payment that is uncensorable. So if someone wants to move $1 million, of Bitcoin around, it's the best way to move $1 million right quickly and uncensorable. So you're willing to pay like $1 or even $10 in fees when you're moving that much money. But the problem is it then prices out people who want to pay, buy coffee or pay for lunch or just pay friends some money. And what I see would happen is people are building on top of Bitcoin, like Lightning networks and other technology that makes smaller transactional value transactions cheaper and to use. So that you don't have to actually use the Bitcoin blockchain. You can use something off-chain.
Sure.
But unfortunately, that technology requires SegWit. And the people who are pushing for block size increase are, for political reason, blocking SegWit, and which is harmful to everyone.
You mentioned people getting into Bitcoin because of its characteristics, moving money around. Obviously, these are very attractive and what has made Bitcoin very appealing. But I'm wondering if a lot of the demand that's coming in now is more speculative. People wanting to buy it because they think it's going to 5,000, 10,000 and beyond. Your thoughts on that?
I think it's always been speculative. I mean, it's for the years I've been in this space, pretty much all the demand is speculative. People see that there's real value of having digital currency that is uncensorable, and that value gives Bitcoin value, and people bet on it by buying Bitcoin. So yeah, most of it is speculative, and I mean these days a lot of it is also people actually want to hold on to Bitcoin instead of fiat because they realize their fiat money is going to zero eventually.
Right.
And Bitcoin, if anything, it's at least inflation proof. If not, it's at least inflation proof, and if things go according to plan, it might even increase in value by a lot.
Charlie, the Bitcoin ETF was not approved, and I want to get your thoughts on that. Is that something that eventually will come online? We will see an ETF. It just was not happening now. And is this a good thing for Bitcoin, mainstreaming digital currencies in general?
I mean, I'm not an expert with like the ETF. I think it's unfortunate that it's not approved. I mean, if it's approved, people would be able to buy Bitcoin or have access to Bitcoins through the ETF. But it's good and bad because using the ETF, it's not really owning Bitcoin. So you get it's more for speculation if you want to speculate on Bitcoin increasing value. It's less about actually using Bitcoin and using the features of Bitcoin, which is uncensorable transactions.
Yeah. Right. So Charlie, I'd like to talk to you a little bit about Litecoin's history. When you started it, tell the story of how you did it and how it came to be, how long it took you. If you wouldn't mind taking us through that, I think we would all appreciate it.
Sure. So let's see. So this was I launched Litecoin in October of 2011, so a little bit over 5 years ago. Yeah. So what back then there were a few altcoins before Litecoin. One of the first one is called Namecoin, which is still around. It's trying to do decentralized DNS. And then there were a few of them that were kind of scammy, where the creators would pre-mine a lot of coins for themselves, and then launch a coin and try to pump it to make it worth something so that the coins that they pre-mined is worth a lot. So I saw what's going on. I saw people's interest in partly speculating on another currency, partly mining on their computers again, because at that time Bitcoin has been moved to GPU mining, so mining on a computer was not worth it anymore. And partly people wanted to experiment on different things. Like Litecoin has a faster block confirmation, 4 times faster than Bitcoin, and this is something that just feels a lot faster. It's easier to transact in Litecoin than it is in Bitcoin. I've done some Bitcoin kind of local Bitcoin transactions where I bought a few Bitcoins or sold a few Bitcoins to people. And sometimes waiting for one confirmation could take like an hour because of how slow Bitcoin is. And just sitting there waiting an hour with a stranger, not knowing whether or not he's trying to scam you or not, is kind of not fun. So
Right.
with Litecoin, like almost like the worst you can wait is like 20 minutes, and that's really a long time already.
Yeah.
So normally Litecoin transactions or block confirmations are 2.5 minutes on average. So I saw those needs, and I decided to try to create a coin that is fair. Right? I didn't want to scam people. I didn't want to pre-mine anything. I created something that's fair, that was based off of Bitcoin. Basically, keep everything the same as Bitcoin and not change things just because, like, not change things for the sake of changing. So only tweaking a few things, mainly just the confirmation time. And also I realized that it needed a different proof of work algorithm because it can't compete with Bitcoin for the hash rate. So I chose Script, which is memory intensive. The point was that it could be mined on a CPU initially, and it was ASIC resistant, so it would make it harder for people to build ASICs. So it wouldn't adopt ASICs so quickly. Turns out Litecoin value shot through the roof after a few years, and it became profitable to build ASICs for it, and ASICs did come out for Litecoin.
Wow. Man, really, it's a success story, and it's a testament to your ingenuity and entrepreneurial spirit. So that's really cool. I commend you for that. Charlie, let's talk a little bit more about SegWit and Litecoin implementing it or not. Is this important for Bitcoin as almost like a test? I listened to your Adam Meister interview, and I know you guys were talking about it, and I know he believes a lot of these altcoins are test nets for Bitcoin. And so is SegWit a test net on Litecoin to potentially see if it would be a good thing for Bitcoin?
I mean, for Bitcoin can see how well SegWit works on Litecoin, and it can potentially help convince Bitcoin miners and pools to activate SegWit on Bitcoin. As for Litecoin, I see it as being able to use like a cutting edge feature that has not been able to be used on Bitcoin yet. So it's kind of like we're able to activate something that the original Bitcoin developers spent 2 years working on, yet Bitcoin has not been able to take advantage of that. So it's kind of fortunate that if we can activate it, we can make use of it. Basically build on top of the hard work of all the Bitcoin developers. And it's definitely something that's really cool. And I'm actively trying to convince the miners and pools to support it and activate it. It's becoming more of unfortunately, it's becoming more of a political thing on Litecoin too, because Litecoin miners and pool operators also mine Bitcoin, and because of the whole scaling issue with Bitcoin Unlimited and SegWit, it's kind of unfortunately come into the Litecoin world, and people are not sure about supporting SegWit because it may undermine their position about not supporting SegWit for Bitcoin. So it's getting a bit messy.
Wow. Well, let's talk a little bit more about some of these alternative currencies. If you wouldn't mind, do you have any other favorites or any other ones that you see as up and coming and worth looking at? I know you're biased, and you obviously have you're the Litecoin founder, but I mean, it says a lot coming from you.
Yeah, I definitely. Obviously, I believe in Bitcoin and Litecoin. I think Ethereum is doing some interesting things with decentralized applications. Though I really didn't like the fact that they hard forked for the DAO disaster. Um, I do, I do like Monero. I think they're doing something interesting um, with fungibility, privacy and fungibility. That's one of the features that Bitcoin and Litecoin is missing, which is fungibility, because you can track Bitcoin and Litecoin payments on the public blockchain, and that makes using money not as convenient if people can just track where that money came from. Though I think Monero will face some tougher scaling issues than Bitcoin has. Let's see what else. One other coin that is up and coming that I'm really excited about is Decred, which is tackling the governance issue that Bitcoin is seeing using proof of stake or proof of work, proof of stake combination, where people who hold coins can buy tickets and use those tickets to vote on how the coin should be improved. I think that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, no, that is interesting. Charlie, so let's talk a little bit about world trends. I mean, the West versus China, the impacts of these global demands for digital currencies. What is the future going to be like, especially if we start seeing major problems, erupting around the world and people looking for something to store their wealth in? I mean, this is a pretty big deal. Digital currencies here in the 21st century.
I think I see like digital currencies becoming like a global currency. So these days, the value of your currency depends on like the strength of the country that's backing it and its economy, right? So people holding currencies that are going through hyperinflation are really trying to get their hands on US dollar or even Bitcoin these days to prevent their money from becoming worthless. And I think more and more people will see that Bitcoin, Litecoin, and other digital currencies, cryptocurrencies, would be a much better place to store their money than a government fiat currency. And also, because it's digital, you can, it's not bound by the rules that government impose on currency, like capital controls and where and how you can spend your money. So it's more about like freedom of money, right? Using money that you earn, you should be able to use it however you want. And I see that being a very good reason for people to hold more and more of their wealth in cryptocurrencies.
Sure. Well, the trend is undeniable, if you ask me, and I'm completely blown away by it. Even though on the technical side, I'm so far behind understanding exactly how the whole thing works. I trust guys like you and other smart people who say, hey, this is legit and it's safe and your money is protected and the transactions are secured and anonymous, and it is really exciting. So to close up this interview here, I want to just ask you about Bitcoin. Is it more likely over the next 5 years to see Bitcoin go to 10,000 or for Bitcoin to go back towards 500 in your opinion?
Definitely 10,000, but I wouldn't rule out it going back to 500 to retest the lows. I mean, Bitcoin, I've been in this space for like 7 years. 6 years. It's been very volatile. Like when I first got in, I got in at the peak of $30. Right after I got in, it crashed all the way to $2.50. and then it came back to 10, and then it shot up to like 100 and crashed to 50, went to like 270, and then went back to 90, went to 1,000 something, and then went back to like 200 something, right? So it's going to have lots of ups and lots of downs. So you can't be afraid if you're holding on to your Bitcoins. Just
sure.
Buy and hold is the strategy I tell everyone.
Yeah.
So yes, I think Bitcoin, the overall trend is it will become more and more popular. People will realize the potential of having a currency that is decentralized and not controlled by any one government or entity, and the value will go up. But that's like in the long term, right? Like in 5 years, I'm pretty sure the value will be much higher than today. What would happen between today and 5 years later is anyone's guess.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. But I know there's some crazy predictions out there. I mean, people are saying $50,000 a Bitcoin, $1 million a Bitcoin. Are these realistic projections from someone as credible as yourself?
I think $50,000 is possible in my lifetime. $1 million is pretty crazy. If you look at, I like to compare Bitcoin with gold. So all the gold currently mined is worth about, I think, a little bit less than like $10 trillion. And Bitcoin right now is less than 1% of that, right? For Bitcoin to be 1% of all of gold, it would be, what is it, $100 billion? So about 5-6 times current market cap. So it would be like at least $5,000-$6,000 for it just to be 1% of gold.
Right.
Right. So $50,000 is 10% of gold. So I think that's achievable. For if Bitcoin became like, a lot of people are like think Bitcoin can replace gold as a good store of value, and I'm in that opinion where I used to think gold is a good store of value. I now think Bitcoin is better than gold. It has most of the properties of gold, or all the properties of gold, except for it's not physical and shiny. Other than that, it's better than gold in every single way. So I like to compare it with gold. So yeah, so $50,000 Bitcoin means it's 10% of, or about 10% of gold's value.
Wow.
And I think that's reachable in my lifetime.
I know I said that was the last question. So that, I assume you assume the spillover will be into all the other alt currencies as well, right? If Bitcoin goes to 50,000, what does Litecoin do?
I don't know exactly what will happen with Litecoin. I do think that Bitcoin will still be the dominant cryptocurrency, like owning about 90%, and then other altcoins would take up like the other 10% of the total market cap, and they will fulfill other needs. Like, yeah. So I'm not gonna say I know for sure what's gonna happen with all these other coins, but definitely I think the future is pretty bright for cryptocurrency in general.
Sure. Well, Charlie Lee, everyone, the founder of Litecoin. Charlie, thanks for coming on the show with me today.
Yeah, thank you.